Um, Okie dokie. Alrighty. So let's have a look at this assessment. I have finished marking your assessments. I have submitted the marks. I just need to know what is going to happen with the next step in terms of the releasing the marks and so forth. So you guys will most probably get the marks over the next day or so before you have to submit this. Now tell me, when is this due? Can I have a date when this is due? I think it's due the 2nd of May. Yeah.
I have it as 1 May. It says on the submission link.
Okay. Let's just have a look and see what do I have here on my notes that I made at the orientation session. Assessment due into the HR 27, 10 April. To 15 May. Okay, 1st of May. I've got it here as well, the 1st of May. Okay. All right. So the 1st of May. So I mean, you guys do have a bit of time. So my first question for this one is, have you guys set up any interviews yet? Paula and Nen, is it Neheni? Neheni?
It's Nyenye.
Oh, Nyenye. Okay, there we go. Nyenye. Got it right. Nyenye. Between the two of you, have you set up appointments yet, by any chance? With anyone? Do you have access to a person that you can chat to about job analysis and training? All right. So that's sort of the first part of it. So I would encourage you to maybe in the next day or so. And are both of you, Nenya and Paula, are both of you working? Do you have, by any chance, at your own place of work, access to an HR person that you can chat to about training and job analysis? Because that would be okay, great. So that would be your first step, and that would be a good place to start. So this is a great assessment, especially for this course, in which you actually do a bit of an interview, and you get to also speak to somebody that's in the industry, and you're getting a sense of what they do. So that's great. So let me just go through the first part and then go through the second part as well. Listen, 3,000 words, 3,500 words is quite a lot. And I would be comfortable with anything between 2,500 and 3,000 words. And the reason why I'm saying that it is, if I look at the breakdown of the marks, it's quite a long report. But I'll be comfortable with something less than that, with 2,500 to 3,000. All right. So this is good. Assessment is designed to help you understand the nature of human resource management role in the training needs of HR professionals. So conduct a job analysis and training needs interview to understand the interviewee's HR role and to identify the interview's training needs. So you're going to have to do that. So that's the first part. And then writing an interpretation of the interview and summarize the interview's basic training plan based on the identified needs. So you're going to have to familiarize with the 6 or 8 questions below. You will ask the person interviewing. As you will see, the focus in the interview should be on skills and training. Now, the great thing about if you're using Microsoft Teams or Zoom or even Google Meets, you can actually set it up in such a way to record it and actually give you a text file afterwards. So it actually records all the audio and it also gives you a text file as well. I know Microsoft Teams does that quite well. I know Zoom does it as well. So you can actually record and get a text file afterwards. So that's the first. Conduct the interview. There we go. Share the interview for the student's assessment written purpose. Thereafter, you must document in writing and describe the HR role based on what was shared in the interview. As a reminder, focus on skills and training required for the job, the management and leadership tasks, and the different types of interactions in the role. So there's a bit of a background to it. Describes the skills development, writing interviews training plan, next 2 years for their own career growth. In 1,100 words, please describe what you've learned about job analysis. So here's the written part of it. So provide a summary in your own words of responses to the interview question. So this is where you can take the transcript of the interview and actually sort of summarize that transcript based on the questions that you've asked. So you can definitely transcribe using the software that's available on Teams, as well as on Google. I know in Google Meet as well, and I know in Zoom as well, you can actually transcribe the session. Identified HR standards. You're mostly familiar with an HR model. Describe relevant HR standards in your own words and explain the activities carried out by the person you've interviewed. I'll link to each of the HR standard works. So this is the first bit of theory that we have as part of this thing. And part of describing theory is look at what's in the textbook. Also do a bit of research outside of the textbook, and actually see on the different websites of the different communities of practice. We call it communities of practice, or the different associations that you can register as an HR professional at. And you can actually use, Danica, you've got a question just before I go on? You can ask the question.
Sorry, it's about the first part, provide a summary. So I just want to make sure. So I obviously asked the questions and then she gave a response. So how I saw it is I must basically sum up everything that she said. But must I state in the summary the questions? Because I feel a summary is like a paragraph. Well, it's not one paragraph, it was a lot because it's 800 words.
So it would be something like, yeah, Danica, it would be something like, you're right. In answering the first question, which relates to this and this and this, my interview responded in this way. In answering the second question, they responded in this way. For the third question, when I asked the third question, so you write it in such a way that it's almost a summary. It is a summary, but you sort of hook the summary into each question. So say when the first question was asked about this and this and this, my interview answered in this way. The second question, in response to the second question, which related to this, my interview answered in this way. The third question was answered by relating the experience by this. The fourth question summarized this. So you almost telling me, the person assessing the summary, that this is what the person said, almost like retelling it, but not retelling it word for word. You're just saying, when they answered question 1, they said this. When they answered question 2, they said this. When they answered question 3, they said this. And finally, in summary, I can say that this and this and this, and you make 1 or 2 key points out of it that sort of stood out for you.
So I don't have to like state the precise questions as on the paper. I can blend it in, incorporate in my discussion.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's have a look at it. So when I asked my interviewer about why she decided to work in HR and human resource management, she answered by saying this. When she described the job-related tasks and responsibilities, she listed the following. Her skills and competencies is this and this. You see what I mean? So you mention the question, but you don't repeat the question word for word.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, great. Does that make sense, Paula and Nyene?
I'm sorry, and I have another question.
Yes, no, of course, no problem, Danik.
Um,
Yes.
just so I did the interview and we must record it, but must we submit the how do we I know we must submit the written assessment, but must we submit the interview video, the recording?
The actual recording itself.
Yes,
Let's have a
because I
look
don't see anything
where it
on it,
says
but
that
yeah,
itself.
but it makes sense to submit it so that maybe you can see because we had to record it. So like I don't understand what's the purpose of recording it then.
Absolutely. I would please upload. Here we go. No, here it is. Please upload the
Oh,
audio recording of the interview
I do the
to
voice through.
VoiceThread or to Google Drive. Yeah. Remember to
Okay,
give you
so
access to the audio recording by copying the link. So you must give me access to the link so
yeah,
that I can go and listen to it. So yes,
because
that answers that question.
because on the portal for the written part, it is just a normal submission through Turnitin. So we have to submit twice so we must submit on our voice thread for you to access, and then obviously the written assessment on
To
the
turn it in, yeah.
turn it in.
Yeah. The thing
Okay,
is,
cool,
I'm not
thank
going to
you.
mark the VoiceThread submission, but it is there for review purposes. So I will look at the summary, I'll go listen to it, and I'll go, okay, no, the summary is a reflection of what the person said. In order for me to give you those marks, did make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm just checking for any other questions. So this is the HR systems model. So make sure when you describe your theory, you describe the theory. And in this case, I would also like you to insert a graphic of the model. Because sometimes a picture tells a lot more than just text. So insert a graphic of the actual model. Let's take a note. That graphic of the actual model, and that, and then you can talk around that when you're describing it. To get a contextual based on the research, which skills do HR professionals in general need to gain to be ready for the fourth industrial revolution? Reference to sources, that's 400 words. I've got some information around that, so I will share some information for you guys as well. Briefly describe the skills development area that the person you interviewed told you about. So they will identify that in their interview in terms of what they would like to gain, develop further to grow as HR professional. What is your interview's training and development plan for the next 2 years in their own career path and growth? Briefly describe that. Again, that will come from the information that they will share with you. In 100 words, briefly describe what you have learned about job analysis, training, and development from your experience by completing this assessment as an HR professional in training. So what this requires you to do is to look at it and go, okay, if I am wanting to go into this field, if I am looking at becoming an HR professional, what has this interview taught me and what have I learned from it? So we'll say things like, what I've learned from it is that the HR role is a very stressful and potentially very difficult role in an organization, or it is a role that has a strategic value for the business, or it is a role that helps with helping the business achieve its business goals, or whatever insight you would have gained. So I'm looking for, in this particular question or this part of your essay, I'm looking for some sort of insight that you've gained from it. And this is really, you look at it and go, you can even, after the interview, you can even look back and reflect on it and go, I don't think I'm cut out to be an HR professional, because based on this interview, I don't think that I've got the skills or the persona or the personality or the emotional maturity to do a HR position. And that is honest reflection. That is truly honest reflection. And that is a great for me, I would rather have you honestly reflect on your own sort of professional development and thinking, okay, so you're doing this higher certificate, you're doing it for a reason. You're not doing a higher certificate in management, you're not doing a higher certificate in coaching, you're not doing any other higher certificate. You're doing a higher certificate in human resource management for a specific reason. What is that reason? You know, and this is where I would like to see it. It's only 100 words, but it's almost like a summary of it. I'm doing as part of my own development as a professional in training and my growth as an HR professional. I'm doing this course. This is part of my own training and development plan, you know, because this might be part of it. I mean, you might have had a conversation at work with your HR person, and they said, and you said, listen, I want to go into HR, and they said, okay, then do this course. And that is why I was so interested to know right at the beginning when we first started the course, why are you doing this course specifically? You know, and why not just a general management certificate or something else? So this is where I'm looking for that. Does that make sense at all? Paula, Nene, and Danica, does that make sense from your own personal professional development point of view? Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks, Danica. Great. Did me just talking through the assignment and answering some of Danica's question, did it help you sort of get a sense of a starting point? You've got about a week and a bit to really get into it. I'm going to set up a Word document that you can use as a submission template. And I will put some resources in that Word document and a bit of a framework and a bit of a format for you, a template almost that you can follow, where I'm going to put all of these sections in. And maybe that will also help you just to structure your ideas and just to structure your thoughts as well. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Paula. And as I said, I will, once I've put together the template over the weekend, I will do another recording talking through the template, breaking down maybe in detail one or two of the theoretical sections that you need a bit of theory on. And hopefully, and then I'll post that as a YouTube video, and then you can have a look at that next week. And then you can start working on your submission. All right. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys, for going through the HR section. And at this point, we're going to switch over to the management side of it. Who is staying for the management assessment? Thank you, Paula. Thank you for that that feedback. Nene? Okay, so Paula, you staying? I think Danica, you staying as well? Nene, are you staying as well? Awesome. Great. So now we switching gears. Now we getting into management, and you also hear that my tone also switches, changes as well, because management is slightly different from HR. It's quite a bit, but this is a fantastic assessment, and the reason why I say that is that it speaks to an area where I am doing some research in, which is about management practice versus leadership, understanding the differences between management practice and understanding leadership. So when we teach management at college, when we teach it at undergraduate level, when we teach at the high certificate level, we generally teach about the management process, which is POLC. And can you still remember what POLC stands for? POLC? You would have read about it. Or, yeah, somebody else?
Organizing.
Yeah. And the L is?
Leading and controlling. Leading
and controlling. Excellent. So when you hear POLC, it speaks to the management process. So it's the process of management. How do you go about managing an organization? And then we talk about leadership. And leadership is defined as something else entirely. Managers need to be good leaders, and leaders also need to be good managers. But managers doesn't have to be leaders. And at times, managers are not very good leaders. And at times, leaders aren't very good managers. So that is why there is this distinction. I like this proverb, this Malawian proverb: he who thinks he's leading has no one following him and is only taking a walk. When we look at African leadership principles, the likes of Ubuntu, the likes of understanding I'm not alone, it's me, my growth is only dependent on your growth. All of those African sort of leadership principles are based on this idea that leaders walk at the back. There was an interesting story about Nelson Mandela. Whenever you used to invite cabinet ministers or anybody to his residence, Tainais or wherever he was, and they would sit around the table, he would get up and he would walk around and make tea for everybody. And that was an expression of servant leadership, saying that I'm not better than you. And even though I'm the president, even though I've won a Nobel Peace Prize, I can humble myself by making a cup of tea for you. And he embodied that idea of servant leadership, of walking behind the cows instead of in front of the cows. Because if he walks in front of the cows, he won't know where to lead them to. And that is what makes sense of this Malawian proverb. So what is the question? The question is, based on the content you've covered in model, explain the understanding of the two quotes above with regards to how each quote links to and describes the POLC model. So the management process. So whenever you see the POLC model, it refers to the management process. It refers to the management process. Just putting the note there. Management process. Refers to the management process. Entrepreneurship, in particular, starting and launching a new business. Business management, leading people in workplaces. Discuss the difference between management and leadership. Consult different sources and give paraphrase definitions in their own words. So they're looking for definitions in their own words and explain related management and leadership theories covered in the module. Also cite and reference at least 3 sources of information, not any readings in this module. So distinguish between the 2 concepts. Okay, so that's, I will give you some sources as 3 sources specifically. I'll give that to you, don't worry. Describe one practical real world. So this is your own application. That's your own application. Let me just make sure I got a different color there. And do not quote the SABBP. Consult existing literature and concepts more broadly. Okay, so that's fine. So in terms of the first part of it, and again, I will put together a template for you and just breaking down the section so that it will be a bit more of a guideline for you to know, okay, so this is what I need to write in here. So when you're going to talk about the Polk model, you're going to talk about management. So you're going to say the Polk model embodies the management process, which consists of planning, setting the organizational goals, organizing your resources, and then leading and motivating your staff and people in order to achieve those goals, and then setting control process in place in order to make sure that you achieve your goals, and when you not achieve your goal, to put in plans in place in order to rectify and make sure you achieve your goals. Entrepreneurship is this idea of taking risk, innovating, and starting a new business and adding value. So this is the only one that I'm a bit confused about. I'm not altogether sure why they've got business management in here as a separate sort of line. I understand leading people in a workplace, which is about leadership, But I think it's not so much business management. It is more so, actually, maybe not strike it through. Oh, word. No, how do I take it back? Okay, anyway. I think it's not so much about business management. I think it's about managing in a business, or managing of a business. Let me just say of a business. I think that is what's meant by this question. So when it talks about leadership, it talks about leadership, leading people in the workplace, and then it talks about managing people in the workplace. And I will give you some details around what my understanding of this whole managing of people in the workplace is, and I'll include that in the template for you. The rest of it is fairly simple. It is about making and the leadership theories. I only want three leadership theories, and I'll tell you specifically. I actually will tell you which ones I want you to have a look at, especially the big ones. This is sort of an area of my expertise. I'll tell you things like look at transformational leadership, look at things like there's a couple. There's three big ones that I would like you to have a look at. That will really give you a good overview of how leadership theories have changed over time, which is a good one. Does that make sense in terms of part one? This is not as straightforward as the HR assignment. It's a bit more different pieces. So think of it as different puzzle pieces that needs to be fitted together in order to give a complete whole. Whereas the HR assignment was broken down. It tells you actually 500 words here, 300 words here, 200 words here. This one is broken up in smaller pieces, and you kind of have to go, okay, so how much do I need to write for the POC model? And I'll put it in the template. So for the POC model, we're like 150 words, entrepreneurship 150 words, managing in a business 150 words, and so forth. And then we'll build up this entire section in terms of what is required. Does that make sense in terms of part one? Yes? For everybody? Nene, Paula? Danica? Right. So read and reflect on the quote below. HR finds itself at the heart of leadership as a custodian in driving leadership development. The leadership ladder, the leadership competency in leaders themselves. Ooh, that's a big statement, yeah. It's a huge risk to be a custodian of leadership if HR has not defined their own leadership. Also, HR has to lead by example, to take on responsibility of leadership. HR leadership is a power in itself and can define many avenues of leadership in an organization. Now, this is an interesting statement, and I'll tell you why. Oh, we don't have a lot of time, but I'll break it down very quickly, because I actually spoke about this earlier, about strategic management, earlier today when I was teaching some BCom students. So post the Second World War, it was this massive industrialization. So when we talk about industrialization, it is companies, global companies starting up and developing and selling products, not just in their own market, but across the world in different markets altogether. Second World War, after the post the Second World War. So through the entire 1960s and 1970s, the people that ran the organization, the people that drove and led the organization were the engineers. Those were the product people. Those were the people that were looking after machines. Those were the people that were entrusted to run the organization, because the organization was led by engineers. It was all about finding efficient ways of doing things, reducing the cost of production. And then following them, it was the shift away from product to brand. So right through the 1980s, it was a shift away from product management to brand management. And it was this explosion of organizations that was led by marketing people. So the people that would end up at the top of the organization would have a marketing background. because the organization now turned into away from product management to brand management. So what does that shift mean from product management to brand management? So products, when you're making products, you're making generic stuff that's the same as everybody else's stuff. And the only way you can compete is when you compete on price, because the cheaper you can make a product, the better you are, because then you can compete. And that is where your competitive advantage lies. But when you have value inherent in your brand, you can charge more for your product, because then you have a differentiator. You've got something that differentiates your product from somebody else. So there's product benefits and features inherent in the brand. So now suddenly your product is a brand rather than just another generic product. And now you're selling brands rather than products. So right through the 1980s to the early 1990s, businesses were driven by brand people. They were driven by marketing people. And they are the ones that end up at the top of the organization. Post 1990, it should have been by all rights HR that would have led organizations, because it was this explosion in understanding of organizational development and understanding that people is at the heart of the organization. People are the drivers of the organization. People are what gives you a competitive advantage, because organizations shifted away from just making stuff to now needing people and having knowledge economies, because now with the explosion of the internet, we have knowledge workers. Knowledge workers are people that have degrees, that are trained, they work independently, they work autonomously, they come up with ideas, they are supposed to be innovative, they're supposed to be working by themselves, they're supposed to be... So these knowledge companies needed to be led by people that understand people. And it should have been HR. It should have been strategic HR managers that ended up at the top of organizations, but they didn't. They missed a beat. They missed out for some reason. And this is what makes this statement so interesting, that yes, HR is supposed to be the custodian of leadership, meaning that they're supposed to be developing and growing organizational leaders and understanding and developing organizational culture, because leadership in organizational culture and organization and motivation all is linked. Your leaders drive your culture, and your culture drives behavior, and your behavior is driven by the organizational values. So all of those things are linked, and HR is supposed to be the one that holds it all together. They're supposed to be the ones that are custodians of it. But they're not. And this is the tension. And you most probably would have picked it up in the in the reading as well. So also HR should lead by example. That's why they say lead in inverted commas there, and should have taken on responsibility of HR leadership. HR leadership is power in itself. It can define many avenues of leadership within an organization. So that's the tension. Having read the HRMAN quote above, and after conducting our own research, discuss the challenges that HR professionals face when managing in workplaces. So some of the challenges that HR professionals face, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, especially in a modern workplace, especially with demographics. And when we talk about demographics, we talk about the different generations of people coming into the organization. Identify and describe 2 people management issues that leaders in an organization, in a business face. Explain the relevance of the SAPP leadership standard. Revisit session 7 readings and other sources when HR professionals address the 2 issues that you've identified. Point 2. As HR professional training, you will have opportunities to address the global SA leadership crisis. Definitely there is a crisis. Mentioned it just that. What are the top 3 management competencies and abilities that you need? And to carry out this task, describe your leadership style in 50 words only. I'll actually give you I'll send you a link to a leadership questionnaire that will also help you better understand your leadership style. Name 1 area of business knowledge, 1 area of leadership skill, and 1 SMB HR competent you want to learn and improve on. So this is your own reflection. Explain why you want to improve each of these development areas or gain the new skills that are identified in the skills gap. So this particular section right at the back of it, section B, really is your own reflections, and also ties into the HR assignment as well. My power is about to go off in the next 60 seconds. Before we finish off, is there any questions? I will put together a template for this assignment as well and give you pointers in terms of what to look at and where to look. The leadership readings I will give you guys. It's a fantastic assignment. Both of these assignments are very good assignments. It will give you a very good sort of opportunity to reflect on your own practice as a HR professional in training. All right, awesome. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it. And sorry it was a bit rushed, but as I said, I will do another recording just to assist you as well. And we will connect next week again. Alrighty. Cheers, guys. Have a good evening. Cheers, guys. Bye.